Okay, everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have another fun follow-up for you from the brand Atticus Watch Company. A little bit about them. Really, they deliver the classic styles of the last half century in a size that are appropriate for the era using modern materials and components of today. So what does that all come out to? A very sweet watch, guys. In terms of what I'd categorize these as, I'd call them an everyday watch. Some key common characteristics and design language. When you're looking for something you're going to wear every day, of course, you're going to want that versatile blend of sporty and dressy attributes. Now, this particular model line is called the Adventure Series, and we're looking here at the Meteora linen dial with date. Absolutely fantastic. And then also a sneak little peek of their Pythes blue dial as well, which is definitely more of that in that Explorer kind of 369 dial layout. But really, I wanted to focus on this linen dial because it's pretty outstanding, guys. It's essentially named for the rock formation in Greece with its natural pillars. The Meteora features a silver champagne linen dial, applied baton markers, and hands. And it has really a super thick application of Superluminova C3 for really wonderful low light readability, which is something you don't necessarily expect in this type of layout, which I thought was really interesting and made it kind of the standout between the two. So I'm happy to feature them both very quickly, but really, man, this linen dial, something special. And it's not to say that the Explorer style dial isn't doing anything for me. You expect it to have killer lume, right? Just look at it. You can see almost a little tint there. You know that it's using a very nice application of C3. But for all intents and purposes, it's essentially just a bit more basic in comparison to this linen dial. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get these pieces in hand, and take a closer look. All right, guys. Now, again, these are pretty much the exact same watch, just different dial and hand layouts. I did originally feature one of the other models, which was more pilot style base. So I won't get into those details too much. But I did want to feature quickly the blue and kind of show you guys how it looks in lighting. And also highlight, man, the beveling on those date windows is outstanding. So as much as I love a good no date option, which they're both available, I did want to kind of share with you that this is a really well executed date window on there. So again, this one is pretty sweet, but ultimately, man, I just wanted to focus on this beautiful linen dial option where I think it really stands out. And of course there's always the homage market, but in this case I think they've kind of ascended into something a little bit more special because of the choice of dial and hand layout. Yes, it does look vintage Rolex-ish to say the least. But man, it's at the same time, it's clearly not, especially when you consider the case, when you consider the bracelets, the overall layout is just a new, modern, well-built watch. And it's again, it's a more in the everyday vein, but you're getting something that definitely has some great versatile, sporty meets dressy attributes, which I can definitely appreciate. In terms of dimensions, you get a 38 millimeter diameter, 11 millimeter thickness with a 46 millimeter lug to lug in full 316L stainless steel, brushed with finely polished chamfers and drilled lugs, which is outstanding. In terms of the crystal, you're getting a nice flat sapphire with inner AR coating. You're seeing that as we bring it really close to the lens here, it does a wonderful job of negotiating these reflections. Of course, this is, we do have the studio lights there, which it's easy to get reflections off of, but you can notice that you can really see that texturing pop up close. And this dial, in terms of the tone and that champagne look, it's nice because although it's not a white dial, it does render visually white a lot, and a lot of it has to do with as the light hits and that linen texture catches it and holds it. So really interesting. I love the color shift and transition. We do also have a screw down crown, which is signed and great. These are powered by Meteora 9015 movements. You can see this is a traveling prototype, and we still even do have a little sticker on the case back. But this thing is sweet, guys. I might have to snatch one of these up when they hit production. The price on these is, when it's fully said and done, are going to be $675 direct, but pre-orders are for $400, and essentially you still have time to order them within that window, and there's no cap on that. They will make as many as are ordered. So if you guys order a ton of these, they will make a ton, and honestly, I think the watch community will be all the better for it, because these are pretty sweet. When it comes to some of the details on the dial, of course, you're getting that silver champagne linen dial, applied indices, polished and loomed hands, and a really great super luminova C3 lume on there. Because this crown is screw down, you are getting a solid 10 atmospheres or 100 meters of water resistance, which makes this absolutely suitable for anything you can throw at it. You are also getting a 20 millimeter lug width, and it's drilled lugs, so these are going to be ultra versatile in terms of being real strap monsters, which is fantastic. Yeah, and then you also get this solid custom bracelet. I think at a glance you think, oh, it's the 3-link, but it's not. You can see it kind of has the H and T intersections there, which look fantastic, and honestly just add something a little bit different to your typical bracelet layout. And I think, of course, they could have done with something more traditional and it would have been fine. Maybe a flat link Jubilee or just a typical 3-link oyster style. But this does add a little bit more visual interest and visual play, and just something different without it being like oddly different. So I have to give them props from that standpoint, that they were able to come up with something that I think is still quite attractive and handsome, and within the classic stylings of what they offer. We do have a nice 20 to 16 millimeter taper on this bracelet, and then you do have, of course, the milled push button style clasp there, with a lot of micro adjustment available, which is fantastic. And honestly, these links are so short, as you can see. And then again, this is kind of, I guess, what you could imagine for a full 3-link. They're basically half-link lengths anyway, built in. And then you see the full links up here, quite thick, but it has a nice flow to it. Looks good, feels good on the wrist. But with that said, let's actually get it on the wrist and see how it wears. All right, guys, as you can see on my 7 1/4 inch wrist, this thing wears absolutely perfectly at 38 millimeters. When you look at the dial to bezel ratios, when you look at the shoulders, this thing just hits that sweet spot, honestly. And I've had 38 millimeter watches that were a little bit too small, and I've had 38 millimeter watches that wear right on the spot. Some of them will wear slightly larger depending on those ratios again, but man, I think this one just really hits it nicely. It put a little bit more arm in there for perspective, but when I bring it up close to the camera, yeah, you can get some lens distortion and it might feel a little bit large, but even then you can see that it doesn't overhang the wrist thanks to that nice tidy lug to lug. And then as I rotate, you can see that thinness really paying off in terms of how this is going to wear and be able to slide underneath a cuff. So really fantastically done. You can see the light just rolls and glides off of all that brushing. Quite nice. I love the detail again that you're getting on here from that really beautiful textured dial, which does add a ton of visual interest to a relatively straightforward case, although you do get beautiful beveling. Look at those chamfers there on the tops of the lugs, even getting an undercut underneath, so it does add comfort as well as a little bit of extra oomph in terms of the finishing there. Man, I dig it. The execution on here quite strong, from the same factories as NTH, and you guys have heard, I'm sure, on other videos who've reviewed those divers, that they're quite strong and quite well put together, and this is no different. So very, very nice from that standpoint. And man, this dial, the way that it transitions here is really fantastic. So with that said, let's actually get this off the wrist on the table and get some low light transition, loom shots, and closing thoughts going for you. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights. As you can see, surprisingly good loom there. It's crazy because they're so small in terms of the application, but I mean, honestly, they're almost 3D little bricks of loom, so they really hold the light quite well. Really quickly, I guess let me slide the other dial in here so you can get an idea. Oh, look at that. So you kind of knew that in terms of low light legibility, of course, that Explorer style 369 layout was going to be quite legible. But honestly, take a look at that. It's still very readable. You're getting that double pip at the 12. So it does still help with orientation from that standpoint, which is fantastic. But one thing I like to do in these loom shots is working some low light transition, because you're not always going to be enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of the times you're going to be, coming in and out of a building, maybe walking underneath an overhang or the shade of a tree, or just spending time in your favorite automobile. So I do like to show how this watch is going to render in multiple lighting situations. Ooh! Look at that dial and the way it captures the light. And one of the things that the low light transition really capture are the textures and the way that the colors render. As much as my camera is fighting to color correct everything right now, I do like to show you how this thing looks, and it's going to render. Again, there's times when it's going to feel like a white dial. There's time, look at that, the way it holds the light, that feels like a white dial. But you can also see it definitely hits those champagne and silvery, kind of pale silvery looks as well, which I can really dig. And another thing that you can also get, even some high contrast lighting, you can see really how uniform this finishing is, which is quite nice. Deep brushing there. The light just glides over the links quite well. So very handsome from that standpoint, and I dig it, guys. And again, super surprise, hey, these loom plots are outstanding. Rewind the video back and take a look at how tall these darn things are. They are not just dots, they're plops of C3. So very nice from that standpoint, guys. Closing thoughts on the wrist. That smaller, more classic proportion is fantastic. It's very comfortable, quite a balanced wear. In terms of model variants go, there's a ton of options, from linen dials like you see here to Tudor Snowflake style to Explorer 369. So, and then as well as even a little bit more on the dressier side, kind of these panda variations, as well as of course more pilot oriented as well, which kind of dip into that Zen 556 style. So a lot of different options, guys. In terms of comparable models, I kind of think of this thing as almost like a baby Montenoble, and I love my Montenoble. I pre-ordered that thing and it's fantastic. It's one of my favorite watches in my collection, and the cool thing is, for like a fraction of the price, you can capture quite a bit, I think, of the same wearing experience. Of course, this isn't going to be to that level of luxury in terms of being competitive with Monta from that standpoint, but I think aesthetically and in terms of kind of just the overall spirit and balance, in terms of the use case for the wearer, you can get a lot of this, a lot of the same. So for a lot less. So I give you guys props for that. In terms of Atticus Watch Co., I think very well done on this one. This one was a real surprise for me, and I'm happy to kind of share it with you guys before these go live, so you can maybe get a head start and be able to order one while they're super available, because I think honestly this is the type of watch that could sell out pretty quickly. So really, guys, bottom line, this is absolutely in the same vein as your Tudor Black Bay 36, your Monta Triumph, your Traska Summiteer, Honestly, Atticus's Adventure series joins the fray as a fully loaded, option with tons of other options. There's just like that's one of the really nice things. If you like the case, you like the bracelet, you like the specs, you have some very different options within the same line in terms of the dial and handset setup. So you can go thematically in a lot of different directions. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you like it? If you liked it, of course, please do hit like. It helps the channel. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.